right, so let's make a new problem where we have, I gave an exam in the class, okay, and it was out of 30 points, okay, and the mean on it was 20, and I had a standard deviation of an S of 5, just to keep it easy. All right, let's do an S of 1. How's that? S of 1. All right, so now it's out of 30 or whatever, so we say 20, 21, 22, 23, 19, 18, 17, okay? So then 0, 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So here's our Z, here's our raw score, okay? And so let's say that I want to know the percentage. I should have not made it half, but whatever. So let's say I want to know the percentage of people that scored between 18.5 and 21.5. So where's 18.5? Here. And where's 21.5 is here. So the full area that I'm looking for is this area plus this area. So now what?
82.
Huh?
82.
You guessing?
No, I did math.
Dude,
It's
shut up.
34, and then half of 14 is 7 on each side, so 14 plus 68 is 82.
All right, so you think it's 82%. Well, we shall see.
Maybe approximately that, but isn't it? Because even if you split in half those percentiles, it's not going to be exactly
Really
half of
rough
14%.
right now.
Right, but here's the thing where he might be really pretty accurate, right? Because on this side, we've got the bigger half here,
Yeah.
but we got the smaller, well, no, we got two of the bigger halves,
Two of the
so.
bigger halves.
We're doing it rough. You said
I know, I know. So he's saying, you know, I thought you did it exact. I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
All right, so our rough is 82%, right? Okay. So now, what do we do next? I said between 18.5 and 21.5. So in order to figure out what exact those percentages are, what do I have to do? What's the first step? Find the z-scores. All right, so let's find out what the z-score is of 18.5. Okay? Z equals 18.5 minus 20 divided by 1. Okay? So that's, make sure you do the negative, right? 18.5 minus 20, negative 1.5, divided by 1 is negative 1.5. Okay? And then the other way, 21.5 equals positive 1.5. Okay? So now, in both cases, actually, I'm looking for the area between the mean and z. Because here's my mean, and there's my z-score that I'm using as the cutoff for what I'm including. Right? So we want to look in the chart, and we want to find if I have a z of 1.5, what is that percent? So here's my 1.5, and it says 43.319. So if I were making this a percentage, what would I say?
43%.
Not enough rounding. Not enough decimal places.
43.32%.
Yep, 43.32%. Okay? So this is 43.32, and so is this, 43.32. So when you add them up, right, you've got 84.64. So when he did it in his head, like with the rough cut, right, he's got 82%. He's not really that, he's not that off. I mean, 86%. Now he's more off. 86%, 86.64%, right? So, he's trying to help him. So, not really, I suck at math, I told you that. So, the deal is that when you get your sort of your rough cut there, you're going to be in the ballpark, okay? And that's all that you really want to start with. That's the purpose of it, so that you sort of understand what it is I'm looking for, and then I do the math about how to get it exact, okay? All right, let's do, we can do this all day. It's like after a while it's sort of redundant, but let's say, all right, now we're going to have, let's do some 0.5s or something. All right, so now we got sales at an ice cream store, and we end up selling within the lunch hour an average of 45 cones with a standard deviation of 5 cones. Okay? So, I've got 45, 50, 55, 60, 40, 35, 30. All right? So, if I were to say, what is a day that I would consider one of the top 10 best days, how many cones would I have to sell? So how would I figure out what's the top 10 best days? Well, this is 34, so this whole thing is 50. So it can't be that. And this is 14, and this is 2. So, well, it's more than 2. And then I've got to cut out some of this to make it 10. So here's 2. So how much more do I need? 8. So somewhere, around here would be my top 10%. All right, now, do I have a z-score? No. Do I have a raw score? No. I'm going to start with the percentage, okay? And unfortunately, the table goes, so it's a standard score. The table goes from your percentage to a z-score, and then we're going to transform that z-score into a raw score to tell us how many ice cream cones we need, okay? So, top 10%, okay? And what am I looking for? This part or this part? So which column do I use? The far one. All right, so top 10%. Top 10%. So I'm going to go around until I find the 10%. Okay, so I'm here, 98, I don't really, now, here's the tricky part. If I say top 10%, let's say I'm giving everyone a bonus who works on the day that we sell the top 10% cones. I'm cheap, like I'm the woman that works at the Big Dipper. So am I going to give bonuses to people that work at the 9.85%? No. I'm going to only give bonuses to the top 10%. So I'm more than willing to say, well, it's, a little over 10%, that's fine. But I'm not going to give you a bonus below, because it's cheap. So depends on what the problem is, but typically we don't ever include what's not what we're looking for. So here I've got that the top, 10.027 or 10.03% is going to have a z-score of 1.28. Okay? So, 10.03% has a z-score of 1.28. Okay? So, now I've got, used my percentage to get my z-score. Now what do I do?
Multiply it by 5. Oh, sorry. You've used x to find your raw score.
Right, so I use the z here to find the raw score. So, x equals our z, 1.28, times what was our mean? What was our standard deviation? 5, plus the mean, which is 45. All right, so let's figure out what that is. 1.28 times 5 plus 45 equals 51.4 ice cream cones. So, get to have a little bit less than I was thinking. So, 51.4%, okay? 51.40 ice cream cones. So if I sell 52 ice cream cones, we get the bonus, right? So that's when you're out there with the sign going, come in and buy an ice cream cone, right? So I can get the top 10%. So you can take a z-score, find its raw score, and tell me a percentage. You can tell me the percentage between two numbers. You can tell me the percentage beyond that number. You can tell me the percentile rank. Okay? You can, if I give you a percentile or a proportion, you can tell me what that raw score is. Right? So, how you doing?
That book that you're using to get like the 10.03% and then the 1.28 with that, will we have that when we take tests like this?
No, I'm going to make you make Yes.
I'm curious if I have that.
I expect you to be the god of guessing. No, you'll have the chart. And that chart is, when you do the homework, that chart is in your tables. So you'll download that, okay? And then you'll have a copy of that on the test, okay? That's a good question, but come on.
Some other people
You know. I want everyone in here to make A's so that I look like a really cool professor. So, the deal is that we go from raw score to z-score. We can go from z-score to raw score. We can get a percentage, a proportion, We can go percentile rank, which would be beyond that point. We can go everything below that point. I can give you a percentage, and you can figure out what is something. So, like a lot of times you say, well, where is it that I fail? If I'm taking a test or whatever, and the professor says, well, everybody, I'm not going to fail anybody. I'm going to do that curve thing that we do, which I hate. But, I don't want to fail everybody. So I'm going to say, though, that I'm going to change it where what's technically an F? Right, 59%, right? If you're in the 59%, you don't have a D, right? Because D starts at 60% and higher, 70% and higher is your C range, 80% and higher is your B range, 90% and higher is your A range, right? So, I feel bad for you. So I'm going to say that anybody that's in the 45th percentile is still going to pass. Right? Huh? I don't want to give you F. So everyone that's in the 45th percentile is going to pass. All right. And so let's say my class I figure out everything for the class, and out of the whole semester, we have an average of, the total point was, the average score for people, let's say I had 1,700 points in my class total. The average points for the class was 1,250, because I'm a hard professor, with a standard deviation of 250. Okay? It's a little bit much given that, but whatever. So, got the 1250. Okay, so then I've got 1500, 1750, 2000. Maybe that'll be like the 2000 is tall possible. Then, okay, then I've got 1000, 750, 5000. I mean, 500. 750. All right. So I said that in this particular case, everyone who is in the 45th percentile gets to pass. So this is 50 percentile. So if you want to be in the 50 percentile, what's the minimum score you can have to pass a class? 1250. So I said 45th percentile. Well, this whole thing is how much? 34. So I'm only getting 5% of this. So it's pretty close to that. So 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. Now, if all of this is 50, what would I look up in my chart to figure out this? 50 minus 5 is equal to the 45%, and the chart only gives you half. So I'm going to be looking up what percent? Huh? 5%, right? Now, you can do this either way. You can say, well, I want because the z is going to be the same no matter what. But I can say, I can look here and say that I just really want, between the mean and z, that number, and that'll still tell me with a minimum score, right? Or I can say, I want to know what, here's the actual percentile rank, so now I want to know what all of this is. So if I'm looking up in my table, you'll see that they're exactly the same. They're just one's one column and one's the other, right? So I can either say 5% from the mean to z, or I can say 45% from the z and beyond. And you'll see when you look in here, they're the same. So I need to go 45% is the area beyond z. So here, 45, all right, so now I'm a little bit screwed. Because here we see, that it's a little bit above 5. So that's not quite 45 percentile. Now, what did it say that the minimum was to pass? You had to be in the what? 44th percentile. All right. What percentile would this be? This one right here. 44.83. Am I passing you or not? No. Listen, I already give you to the 45th percentile instead of the 60, until the 59. So look, I got to draw the line. Okay. So when I'm drawing the line, 44.83 is really a bummer, but you ain't passing. So in this case, we got to go here. Even though it's a little bit more than the 45%, right? And this is a little bit less than that total 5%. I know that if I get there, I'm passing. Okay? So we want to say that in this case, we're going to use the z of 0.12. Okay? Now, is this a positive 0.12 or a negative 0.12? Negative. Because on this thing it said anyone who gets 44 or below, so this is going to be on the negative end. Okay, negative 0.12. All right, so I want to find my raw score now, because I've got the z-score of negative 0.12, so my raw score is equal to my z-score, negative 0.12, times my standard deviation, which is 250, plus my mean, 1250. All right. So 0.12 negative times 250 plus 1250. So it looks to me like if I get 1,220 points, if I get 1,220 points, I get to pass the class. If I get 1,219, I ain't passing. Okay, so if I'm looking at what do I need to make sure I pass, that's how you figure out what that is. Okay, so any way that I give you a problem, and you'll get these on the test if you want to use some of them, and or you can draw your own, it doesn't matter to me, and you want to use that to help you if you're not quite sure and all it feels like is numbers to you. Back yourself up and look at what am I trying to find, right? Okay, here I'm trying to find what is the minimum score I need at this 44%. Well, if I end up with the 45%, okay, well, 45%, put that on the distribution, shade it in, and then if you need to say, okay, that's what I'm looking for, so then you go to the chart, and because you've shaded it in here, you can go to the chart and say, okay, I'm going to use this column or this column. Which one am I going to use? So let's say you chose this to shade it in. Which column am I going to use? This or this? This one says the area beyond Z. This one says the area between the mean and Z, right? So if I'm shading it in and I've got it shaded this way, I'm probably going to use the area beyond Z, right? So, all right, I'm all good. I'm zoning in on the answer. And it said, well, what do I need? Well, it said if you got in the 45th percentile. All right, 45th percentile, that's going to be, well, I need to know what the Z is for the 45th percentile. Find 45. If I'm unsure between two to look at it, think about the problem and what it's asking. If I say only people in the top 10% get the bonus, you can bet you're not getting the bonus for 9.99%, 10%. If I say people in the 45th percentile are the only ones that pass, if you got a 44.98 percentile, you ain't passing. So you'll go a little over if you need to make sure. Sometimes you can go under, but that's very rare, okay? So just think of what the question is asking you, and that'll determine if it's between two, which typically it will be, which you're going to pick, okay? Then that'll give you a z-score. Once you have your z-score, you go back to a raw score. If I give you a raw score and I ask you for a percentage or a percentile rank or a proportion means what, what percentage or proportion of people are between these two things, right? Now, one thing we haven't done that I can also do is what if, I'm just curious, if I went to 40%, what percentage of people would be added that I would pass? Because right now I'm saying 45%. If you don't get the 45%, you fail. But I'm thinking I might want to go down to 40%. What would that minimum score be if I changed my mind about that? Right? And all I want to know is I want to know what those scores are. So, this is that 45% part. Okay. And if I go down to 40%, am I still on the side, same side? Yeah, but I haven't even got out to the -1 yet. So if I add 5% more proportionally, right, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to go down to 40%. What's my new lowest number?
40.
So now we're going to do 40% instead of 45%. And we want to know what the lowest raw score becomes now. Okay? So we did the 40 there. Now I'm 40. All right, so here we have our chart. And now in this case, see, we've got the 40.128, and all these are still 40. And that's 0.3974, so that's 39.74. So we wouldn't pick that one. So we're going to have 40.13%. Okay? So we'll say 40.13% has a z-score of 0.25, and since it's on this side, it's going to be negative. So now we want to say what percentage, or what is the minimum score now? Okay. So we've got 0.25, negative 0.25, negative 0.25 times 250 plus 1250. So now it's 118. It's 1187.5. So let's say 1187.50. And since it's exam scores, we really don't have, or class total possible. It would be, we would say, now, if I was generous, I would say, well, let's just go with 11.87. But, we've already, go with 1187. But because I've already curved as much as I'm curving, I would go with 1188. So if you got now 1188, you can pass. Now, you can also figure out what proportion of people scored between two scores. And that can be on the same side of it too, all right? Let's say let's go back to our ice cream problem. All right. Something like that. Let me see here. So I'm in this company and I'm trying to decide about raises, okay? And in my company, the average employee makes $43,000. And it's got a standard deviation of 2,500. So you could say 43 and 2.5, right? 43, so 43 plus 2.5. Okay, so that's 45.5 plus 4,800 plus 50.5. And I've been thinking about giving a raise, but I'm concerned about costs or whatever. And so the deal is that I want to know what percentage of my employees is it if I want to take a group of people that are making in between. I want to take the people that are making 44,000 to 49,000, that range. And those people, I'm going to give a raise of $2,500, just say. So it's an incentive. So I want to know what's the proportion of people in the company that would qualify for this raise? Can I figure that out? Right? So I've got people that are making 44,000 all the way up to 49,000, and I need to know what percentage of the company qualifies for that raise. So I would start with, here's the 44, and there's the 49, so I'm looking for this range here. But the chart is sort of strange, because my chart only goes from the mean to z. So I don't want this, because that's the people for 43 up to 44. They don't qualify for the raise. Only people that are 44,000 to 49,000 are going to get the raise. So how do I figure out what to do?
Would you do from the mean to the 49 and then from the mean to 44 and subtract them?
Yes, that's exactly what you would do. So you're going to get this value, and then you're going to get this value, and this is all of it, but you don't want all of it, so you're going to subtract that piece, and that's going to give you the proportion or the percent of my company that qualifies for the raise. All right? And then I can say, last year, blah, blah, blah percent of my company got a raise, right? I care about the little guy in the middle. So let's figure it out. All right, so let's do the 49. 49 minus 43 is 6. Divided by, you can say 2,500 or 2.5, same thing. So that's a 2.4. And it's positive, because it's on the positive side. So I got a z of positive 2.4. And then I want to do the 44. So 44 minus 43 divided by 2.5. 1 divided by 2.5. 1 divided by 2. Oops. Equals 0.40. All right, so now I've got both of my z-scores. I need to get my percentages for that area. So if I have a z of 2.4, and I'm going to go mean to z of that, I go in my chart and look for the z that's 2.4. Okay. 2.4 is here, and I'm going the area to z. What percentage is that? 49.18%. Okay? So this is 49.18%. Okay. Then I need the 40. So 0.40 is here. So then what that is percentage? 15.54. Okay. So 15.54%. So then I only want this area, so 49.18 minus 15.54 okay, is 33.64. So I can say close to, I can even say more than 33% of my company, almost 34% of my employees got a raise last year, right? So we can do this any way the problem is given to us.